Welcome to The Solution Behind the Symptoms. This is a show where expert therapists and doctors treat real-life patients trying to heal from their chronic conditions. I know there's so much information already out there about how to heal from your symptom, but often there's not a lot of good scientific research backing up which is the right direction for you to take. I'm a researcher, I'm a therapist, I work with medical schools and some incredibly smart scientists to figure out what are the strategies that actually help people and what are the strategies that just sound good on Instagram and don't live up to the hype when you test them in actual clinical trials. It's my intention to bring you the best practices each month alongside a guest expert. And it's an absolute honor to be hosting this show for an organization that has done probably more for the innovation in this field than any other organization in the world, and that's the Association for the Treatment of Neuroplastic Symptoms. Today you'll be hearing a session I did with a patient named Anna, who's trying to figure out what's getting in the way of her recovery of years of chronic pain. As you'll see with Anna, you're so much closer to your breakthrough than you realize. Joining me to break down clips from this session is one of the most prolific chronic pain researchers in the country, Dr. Yoni Ashar. Dr. Ashar is going to show some of his cutting-edge research. He's also going to provide some insights on where he thinks treatment is headed in the future. So let's meet my first guest. All right, joining me today is Dr. Yoni Ashar. He is the co-director of the Pain Science Program in the Department of Internal Medicine at the University of Colorado Medical Campus, where they execute incredibly important research studies on chronic pain. Yoni led the famous Boulder back pain trial and at any given moment is juggling multiple studies with different treatment teams and hundreds of patients, all focused on helping people get better quickly. I've worked with Yoni on several chronic pain studies, and if there's one person in the world who can explain the best practices of mind-body medicine for chronic pain, it's Dr. Ashar. Yoni, thanks so much for being here.
John, it's a pleasure to join you here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk to you today because I think one of my favorite pieces of your research is you did the Boulder back pain trial. It was incredible. It got incredible results. People got out of pain very quickly. I think it was 2/3 of people got out of pain. 98% of people got better. But at the end of it, you did this study on asking the question of what were some of the commonalities between people who got better? And I know you kind of came up with 3 elements. Can you share those elements with people of how people got better?
This study was led by my colleague, Holly Tonka, and she found 3 main themes. One was decreased fear and avoidance of pain, and changes in your beliefs about the causes of pain, like understanding that it's kind of the classic PRT story. Like you understand that it's a false alarm, you're not afraid of it as much anymore. The second theme was about emotions and relationships. People talked especially about making space for emotions that had been present but had been pushed to the side or bottled up. They talked about learning, giving themselves more permission to feel things that they were feeling, being more honest with themselves and more real with themselves about what was really happening in their relationships. And and the third theme was the social connection. And let me explain what I mean by that. We mean that in two senses. One was the relationship with the therapist, like just feeling the therapist's belief in them and their capacity to heal, feeling the therapist's confidence that this could work for someone like them. And it was also like the social connection to other people who had recovered. So it was hearing recovery stories or speaking to people who had recovered and having that social we call it like a social model, like a role model of like, oh, well, that person, was suffering terribly and they got better. And I think I could too.
So that's really why I'm excited to have you here today, is because the patient I recorded for the session we're going to be listening to, really, we address those second and third elements. And often when you address those second and third elements, that first element of your fear or your avoidance of the pain goes down. Was there anything in that research that surprised you? Were you surprised by any of the elements that showed up, or did you predict those as the people that got better?
I was not surprised by theme 1 of changing your understanding of pain, reduced fear. I was definitely surprised by themes 2 and 3 because up until doing that study, I thought of PRT as like a very kind of like vanilla sort of just change your beliefs about the pain, start to get active again, work with the fear of the sensations. And so this study really changed my understanding of PRT and is what helps people get better. Is like in many cases, like all the pain focused work is just not enough. You have to dive into emotions and what we call non-pain threats, but other relationships, other things going on in people's lives that are keeping them in this high threat state. And yeah, and the other thing that really surprised me was this idea of recovery stories being so helpful. Like in retrospect, it's no surprise. It's like, oh, obviously that's helpful. The way I was trained as a clinician and all the treatments I can think of, like connecting with one exception, connecting patients with other people who have recovered is just not a major part of treatment.
And tell me about this other research you've done just about the sensitivity. I think it has a lot of ramifications for how people view their experience.
Yeah. So I'm really excited about this. This paper is going to be hopefully coming out in early 2026. Almost like a sort of an afterthought, we included in the Boulder back pain study. What we did was while people were in the scanner, we played this terrible sound. It's the sound of a knife scraping over a glass bottle, and and we played that for people while they were before and after treatment. And we also played it to a group of people without chronic pain, healthy controls that were laying in the scanner. And we had a few findings. So one was that people with chronic back pain found this sound to be far more unpleasant than people, than healthy controls. And I think I expected there to be like a small difference, but this was a large difference. And so seeing this magnitude of difference in the reported unpleasantness of the sounds was really surprising. Because, from at first glance, you have to ask, like, what does back pain have to do with finding a sound more unpleasant? I thought, back pain's about the back or how you interpret sensations from the back or your fear about your back being broken. And so this finding, I think, forces us to reconceptualize chronic pain, at least in part, as a multisensory condition, that the brain is amplifying a range of sensations, that there might be some central volume knob across all sensory input that is amplified in chronic pain. And it's not back specific in any way.
It kind of leads into what we're going to be doing with this patient today, is not only figuring out how to teach her how to decrease the pain levels, but just decrease the discomfort she gets from multiple aspects of her life. Treat these patients holistically so that we can turn down this grand volume knob that's turning up sensitivity on everything. So let's get into the patient and we'll go from there.
Great.
So Anna, why don't you tell me a little bit about what you've been going through and what you feel today?
Okay, so back in 2019, I started experiencing chronic pain in both my hands and my arms. And being an artist, working with my hands all the time, that became a huge threat to my career and to my life. And going to the doctor and going to the different kinds of specialists didn't really provide any answers because everything they found was structurally okay. All the tests of all those things were like strength and nerve sensitivity and all those things were okay. So nobody was ever able to help me until, years later, 6 years later. I stumbled upon that book called A Way Out, and I started learning about the existence of neuroplastic pain, and I was like, wait a moment.
And what do you feel today? I know we corresponded through email and you said you've made a lot of improvement. What are some of the things you still experience?
Well, I think that the level of the pain that I had before, or that I've constantly had, has been pretty alarming, and at times it's required me to even step away from my work and also from playing musical instruments. I feel like the biggest difference is that now that I have a little bit more education about my situation, I still have the pain, which is not great because it's still there somehow, but it is not debilitating in the sense where it's making me disabled. So that is a huge improvement. But I feel like there could be more improvement. Like, I have hope that eventually the pain can just like go away or not come back as easily. I'm very glad that it doesn't get to those levels where it used to get before, but I'm also not happy that it's still reminding me that it's kind of there, you know?
Yeah, no, I think you reach a point where so many people reach where it's like, you know enough now, and there's not so much fear where it's not excruciating and it's not debilitating, but it's still like annoying, I can imagine. Just the
It's
fact that it's still
annoying
there.
for sure.
Yeah. How does it affect your life, that annoyance? Like what does it still do for you?
But there's this thing, and I'm gonna get a little bit philosophical just because that's how I am. There's this thing about pain that makes you miss out on the mindfulness of the present because you're every day, you're living your life. You're experiencing the things that you're here to experience. And, you're with friends, you're at work, you're doing something fun. And the pain is always like this ambient background noise that is kind of stealing away from the experiences that you're having. And that's not nice because, like, I would love to be fully present, 100% present without having to be thinking that I am in pain. But the being in pain steals from like the experiences that I'm having, and that's not fun. Even when I'm
Mm-mm.
playing music, which I love doing, like I can't fully be like in the art of the moment because I'm thinking like, oh shit, my hand's starting to hurt, and it's unfair. I have this one in my back that is like around my shoulder, and it's been there for like 3 years. That's like the new one.
Mm.
And it's just like this muscle cramp thing that makes me feel like pins and needles. And it's been there for like 2 days. And I'm like, why?
So I think this touches really on this kind of multisensory annoyance we were talking before about how chronic pain, but just the whole chronic pain experience just takes you out of the moment. Is this a thing you see consistently with patients in the studies and the research you've done?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love how she describes pain as a thief, as
Mm.
stealing her away, stealing these experiences from her that she could otherwise be happening. But it's she feels that with pain, it's very she can't be present when she has pain, and it's like this either or. Either I can be mindfully present, or I'm in pain, and then I can't be mindfully present. That's one of the major skills we're working with in PRT is how to merge both of those, how to be in pain and be mindfully present with the pain. And it's really hard because then your present moment experience is, sucks. It's unpleasant. And so that's hard to be with.
And just for the listener at home, when Yoni uses the term PRT, he's talking about pain reprocessing therapy, which is a neuroplastic recovery therapy. Yoni, when in your research with PRT, have you seen evidence that it does turn down this sensitivity? It turns down this mechanism in your brain that does steal the present moment away from you?
Yeah, it does. we we found that PRT, it reduces people's reported unpleasantness to these like these obnoxious aversive sounds, and we also see corresponding changes in their brain. What we specifically see is increased activity in the medial prefrontal cortex in response to these sounds, and that is really interesting. And there's really a couple things that could be happening there. Now, why should the medial prefrontal cortex increase in response to the sounds? And for one thing, what we saw was that in patients compared to controls, patients had less medial prefrontal cortex in response to the sound. So the increase is a good thing. It's going and it's kind of making our pain patients look more like people who are pain free. It could reflect the ability. So the medial prefrontal cortex has these project has helps us regulate our emotional experience, and so that may be what happened. This increased response is our brain's ability to kind of turn online and say like, okay, hold on, let me bring some regulatory capacity to this difficult experience right now.
Well, it's a perfect lead into our next section because Anna is in my conversation with her. She's this incredibly impressive person. She's an immigrant that kind of through talent and will and hard work really carved out a very impressive part for herself in the movie industry. But despite all the successes she's had, she keeps on feeling like an imposter, and she feels like she can never really relax. And this emotional experience she's having is driving a lot of dysregulation. And so I want to get to see from her, where did she learn some of these patterns, and where did she learn this difficulty to relax, and see if we can change those going forward. So let's take a listen. You learned this somewhere, and it's clearly like what's led to some of your success is when there's a problem and uncertainty, you just like get to work, figure out how to solve away the uncertainty, and you just have this like incredible energy and motor to get it done, but it comes at a incredible cost. Does that feel like a pattern you've had for your
Yeah,
life?
like there is huge amounts of proficiency and effectiveness and discipline and proactiveness, like all that. We have a lot of that. We don't have any of the self-care. So that is kind of sad for me, because looking back, when you're on the safe side and like the worst is behind, you kind of look back and you see more objectively like how you navigated things. And I was not taking care of myself. I was just pushing myself to the limit, and I was crashing, and I wasn't really doing anything nice. Like, I was like, we don't have time to do anything nice. Like, we're not going to enjoy it anyway. So I think that was kind of sad. Like, I really just put myself through this really hard thing, and there was no room for feeling nice or being nice to myself.
Where did you learn that pattern? Who did you learn that from? Or is that something you've had in your whole life?
I was raised in an environment that really rewarded trophies. I went to a school that was obsessed with students getting into Ivy Leagues when they went to college. I feel like I just learned by example, and I'm not saying that my mom wanted to teach me to be stressed or anything bad, but I did grow up in a really high stress household, and I went to a really high stress school system, and all my life I've always equated like value with like how just how good you are at your job or how good you're at getting things done. And obviously, like, that's the environment that I come from.
We have these self-defeating beliefs. This idea of my self-worth is dependent on my achievement. And for some people, it's their looks. For some people, it's economic achievement. It sounds for you, a lot of worth got derived from achievement, not just financially, but how many people you're helping and what you're doing. Does that feel...
Yeah, 100%. I feel like all of my worth, all of it, has always been tied to achievement. I suspect that I have something neurodivergent going on. I might have ADHD, or I might be in the autistic spectrum. I don't have proof for it now. But when I was a kid, I hadn't learned how to mask my behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And my behavior was like spooking out a lot of people innocently, like I was just being me. But I was not a person who was well received in any circle. Like, I was bullied. I was treated very like poorly by everyone, like family members, classmates, teachers, everyone just didn't know how to like deal with me, because like I was too honest and smartass and weird and like etc. So I was somebody who had a really low self-esteem just based on how people treated me. But when I made like an amazing piece of art, or I was the only person in the class who passed the calculus test, or I was like, I would get these positive reactions from people that I would not get otherwise, And like even my parents at home, it's like, oh yeah, sure, my daughter's weird, but she won the national chess championship, and like those things made me feel like I could justify being different or not being the norm. So I became addicted to them because I guess they created some kind of safety for me. It's like, oh look, I still belong because like I bring this to the table, which kind of sucks.
100%. I mean, no wonder things don't feel safe. I've seen this so much recently with people who do have neurodivergent or have certain pieces of the spectrum in them, is like their baseline setting wasn't socially acceptable. And so they learn from a young age that like the way that I interact in the world and my default isn't safe because I get punished for it. And so therefore, like I have to work to find some sort of acceptance in society. Does that feel relevant to you?
Oh, 100%. It's like, I feel like I have always, and this is crazy because like now I'm realizing it, I've always felt unsafe just by existing.
I mean, before we even go into the ramifications of what this does to pain, can you relate to Anna at all? Like, do you hear any of yourself in her, and can you relate to this feeling?
Oh wow, yeah. I do. I do. I especially, not the like gratefully I grew up in that. Well, as you say things, you start to realize things about yourself. I have grown up and I am in a context where achievement is rewarded. There's a lot of pressure to do more. Uh, we feel like that your worth is I don't know if for me, I'm not sure how that's my worth, but just there's a lot of I can get into modes where I feel like a tremendous amount of pressure to get a lot of things done, and um, eh, there's a part of me when that happens. There's a part of me that starts to cry and to get really like wanting more compassion and gentleness, and then that sometimes that part just gets squashed and pushed aside in a bulldoze in the name of getting more done, crossing more things off the to-do list. So that aspect, I do relate to that completely.
I heard so much of my story in her. It's never apples to apples, but it's this kind of constant nervous system activation that comes from feeling like you can't just coast. You have to continue to justify your existence. This feeling like you're going to get shunned from your social environment. Why is that so effective on our nervous system, and why can that lead to chronic pain?
Yeah, it's the chronic stress. Our bodies and our brains, our whole stress response is designed for acute stress response. It's shared with other mammals who, were used to having a short sprint to escape a predator, but then you go back to baseline, you're back to grazing. And, the deer is not sitting there anxious when it's grazing about its to-do list or where dinner tomorrow is going to come from, right? So there is, and some of the early findings actually from Bruce McEwen and others is that chronic stress leads to um, changes in the medial prefrontal cortex, the loss of neuronal branching in the medial prefrontal cortex. That's the same region that we were just talking about a few minutes ago that provides some of that self-regulatory capacity.
Hmm.
And so that may be diminished as a function of this chronic stress response and the effect of cortisol being chronically elevated.
And this is really, in our first episode, this is a patient I really wanted to show because she learned about pain reprocessing therapy or just, any of these neuroplastic recovery therapies a while ago. She read Alan's book, The Way Out. She knows that her pain is not structurally caused. She fears it less. And yet there's something still getting in the way of her brain feeling calm and relaxed. And so now she has some awareness of maybe where some of this dysfunction is coming from. But as we know, awareness is only about half the battle. And so what I want to show Anna next is, okay, now that she has the awareness, what do you do once you have the awareness of what might be causing this nervous system dysfunction? So let's take a listen. I want you to just close your eyes. And I want you to just feel your breath slowing down. And this might feel uncomfortable at first. But all I want you to work on is just slowing your exhales down. Feel like each time you breathe out, it gets a little bit longer, a little bit slower. And one of the hallmarks of being in this vigilant state is you'll just kind of feel your body trying to protect you It almost feels like too vulnerable right now. So I want you to see if you can just kind of slowly feel like you're just letting go of any tension. Feel it in your forehead and your jaw and your shoulders. Just feel yourself just kind of letting go. And the mindset I want to get your brain used to right now is this idea of I don't have to protect anything. There's nothing to protect. And what we want to notice is what comes up in reaction to this feeling of try to relax. What do you notice in your body right now? What feels uncomfortable?
The question, then who is going to protect the things, just popped up.
God.
Like it's looking for somebody to like relay the task to.
In these moments, what we can try is I want you to just imagine your roommate sitting with you right now. And just holding your hand as you do this. And just feel the presence of somebody else caring for you and letting you know it's going to be okay. Feel like you can kind of use her as a resource. And what I want you to ask that instinct that says, who's going to protect me? I want you to ask that instinct, what do I need protection from? What's scaring you right now? And just kind of notice what comes up.
I don't know why I had the word bad luck just pop up in my head.
Good. So think about that bad luck. And what your brain wants to do is it wants to turn this into an anxious experience where you try to bend the external world to make sure you don't have any more bad luck or protect yourself against it. And what I want you to see if you can do is instead of trying to problem solve it away, I want you to ask yourself, does this bad luck make me angry? Do I get frustrated with the bad luck? And just think about this latest situation with the house. And what do you feel when you ask that question?
I feel like more than anger, it's fear. It's fear that like one day I'll be too exhausted to keep fighting.
And so let's go with that then. What your brain wants to do is it wants to use fear as like a motivator. And we want to see what's underneath that fear. I want you to see if there's any sadness that comes up with this idea of being so exhausted that you might not even be able to protect yourself. The fragility you have.
I'm getting the word abandonment.
Good. So go toward that. Think of a time where you felt abandoned. What comes to mind right now?
Always.
Good.
Everything, everyone.
What comes to mind? Just pick one. Anything that comes up, the first thing that comes into your head.
I just remember being like a kid and hiding in my closet to see if my parents were going to come and check in on me, and they didn't.
And so just watch that little girl. Feeling incredibly disappointed, incredibly lonely. She's gone through this experience in life now where she feels like she's not lovable unless she's achieving. And now she gets this feeling of proof. And what emotion comes up when you just watch her in there?
Unfairness.
Good.
Like indignation.
Good. So let's go there. What feels unfair? And I want you to see if you can kind of just tap into any frustration that comes up. What feels unfair?
I feel like there's people in the world doing way worse things and not getting punishment. And I was doing so good and I was getting so punished, and that's just ridiculous.
Good. And this is where we want you to just keep going. I want you to feel where you feel that frustration, that unfairness. Where do you feel that in your body?
My neck.
Good. This is where it is.
I don't know why, because my neck just feels tingly right now. It's so weird.
So I paused there because you can see Anna starting to see almost like the direct correlation between her emotions and her discomfort in her neck. Why does the brain give us physical sensations in response to emotions, especially physical sensations that aren't kind of like the classic signs of emotions? Like, why would one feel pain or tingliness in the neck based on indignation or unfairness?
I don't know. I really don't know. I think it's fascinating. I have to say, John, watching you work clinically is a treat. It's just amazing to see. It raises so many questions for me. I feel like I want to just understand what's happening in this like web of associations, these threads. It's like watching you pull on these different threads, and one thread leads to the next, leads to the next. And it's like Anne, her mind just knows where it needs to go, and the feelings are transitioning from fear to sadness to frustration, and and then these feelings are showing up in our body, and there's so much we don't like. I think we might have an intuition of clinically of like, oh, right, this makes sense. And yes, but scientifically, I struggle to explain this. And it's something I'd really like to focus on in the next phase of my career, actually. Like, what is going on at these, and like one very basic, I think one foundational question I've had for a long time when someone is feeling, say, frustration or anger or what have you, and then this shows up in their neck. Has anything changed in their neck? Like if we could measure all the muscles and ligaments and tendons in the neck, does there anything change there? Or is this purely a cortical phenomenon where just the neck centers of the brain are lighting up without any physiological changes in the neck itself? And as far as I'm aware, that hasn't been answered.
When you
And
see, like when you did that qualitative study at the end of the Boulder back pain study where it showed people who understood the connection between their emotions and their pain and then learned how to process them in a better way and the pain got better, what theory comes to your mind? Like you say, like you don't know why this is happening, but certainly you have to have a hunch of what's going on.
yeah, so my main theory comes from EAET, it's emotional awareness and expression therapy, and ISTDP, intensive short-term dynamic psychotherapy. At least that's where I've learned it from, which is that it's a theory around inner conflict. So there's certain feelings we have inside, and then there's a reaction, a response to those feelings where we say, no, I don't like them. I don't want them. I want them to go away. Or there's something that's not okay about those feelings. And, um, and that inner conflict creates an overall state of tension or stress, which then drives symptoms. And now you can ask, well, how does a general state of tension or stress drive symptoms? I think that's, I can offer a few different theories about that as well. It could increase muscle tension. It could just kind of turn up the volume on all sensations like we've been talking about. So there's a lot of questions there. And, so for example, with this patient, Anna, there's all these emotions that like anger, fear, sadness, like before we started asking about them, were they there or were they not there? And I think it's, in a sense, she probably wasn't aware of them, but I think we have to, I feel like I have to say, well, they were there in some kind of back burner, kind of stored on the closet situation, but they were still alive and active in her system. Some circuits in her brain are playing the anger circuit or the sadness circuit, but the rest of her brain is kind of, successfully pushing that aside so she can function in the world. But by your very skillful questioning and approach, you're just giving space for all those parts to come up. And that's relieving the tension and the stress on the symptom of constantly trying to push those away.
It's a perfect segue into the next segment because now that we have kind of those back burner emotions on the front burner or the unconscious emotions in the conscious brain right now, I want to show Anna a more effective way of getting some catharsis or getting some sort of conclusion or feeling of safety with these emotions. So let's take a listen. There's a piece of you that's really angry about this that needs to speak. What else feels unfair in your life right now? What other experiences in your life have felt unfair? And just kind of go with it.
The way I've seen myself feels unfair.
Good. How do you see yourself?
I feel like not, like I've had this unrealistic, negative image of myself based on only reactions of other people, not actual bad things that I've done.
And this is where we want to reattribute blame. Think about all those people that have led to your negative self. And I want you to see if you can just express frustration. Who's taught you to be so critical of yourself? Whose reactions have been unfair?
Like a lot of people.
Good. So
A
just,
lot of people.
and how has that felt?
This feels like alienating.
Good.
Like they were all the same and I was something else.
How frustrating does that feel?
Extremely frustrating.
Good. And where do you feel that frustration?
My stomach.
Good. And I want you to just see if you can just speak it out, speak out what feels frustrating. And if not, if it feels like it's not coming, just imagine yourself just screaming at the top of your lungs. Just picture yourself expressing it. We need this authentic self of you. This part of you has been there the whole time. It's been watching. It's been feeling tremendously frustrated. But society's taught you that you have to be vigilant and be sociable and put up these barriers. And just feel that stomach almost roar. And with each exhale you have, almost exhale as if it's a scream. And just feel like you're taking care of this piece of you that needs to be heard. And just stick with it. Stick it with it for the next 15, 30 seconds. Almost imagine like you're exercising right now and you're really pushing it. It's like a primal outlet of anger. And as you're doing this for the last 15 seconds, I want you to just imagine your roommate there holding your hand as you do this and supporting you and seeing you and loving that piece of you that's very angry. Good. And now I want you to just notice if you feel any tiredness or any sadness coming over. Ask yourself, all those people who had judgments or had you feel so negatively about yourself, does it feel sad at all that that happened to you?
There's definitely grief.
Good.
There's grief because I realized that I was asking for permission for people that shouldn't have that authority over me. They don't pay my bills, they don't feed me, they don't do anything for me, and they were dictating stuff.
Good. So what I want you to see if you can do is just grieve those times. It doesn't mean accepting that you're going to be that way going forward. Just grieve how painful it was to give them that authority. And just feel that wave of grief, feel the wave of the years, how hard it's been. Feel the heaviness of that. Just allow that piece of you to feel very sad about it. And where do you feel that sadness come up?
My throat.
Good. So just feel it. And whether it's your roommate or yourself, just imagine just kind of holding your hand right now and saying, it's okay. Of course you're sad. You've every right to feel this way. And how does that feel?
Feels different. It feels like some tension is leaving.
Good. So let's take advantage of that. I want you to just feel how, even if there's still emotion going, just feel yourself slowing your breath down, feeling yourself relax, feel your muscles go. And just see if you can let yourself know, in this very moment, I'm exactly where I need to be. There's nothing more I need to be doing. I don't need to protect myself. And just imagine almost creating this really safe place for yourself. And you can invite whoever you want in there, or it can just be you. You've let these emotions come up. You've given them a space to express themselves. And now just imagine with each breath, you're just kind of sinking into a nice safe place. And see if you can just let yourself know, I'm going to be okay. I'm taking back the right to have agency over myself from other people. I'm taking back my ability to regulate myself. And just think I'm enough as I am right now. And I want you to think about some of these places, like these new big bedrooms you have, or the nice neighbors who brought you cookies. Think about just existing around this nice, beautiful space with this feeling of I have enough. I don't need to change myself anymore. And I want you to just bring your awareness to that sensation that was in your neck or your back before. Just notice how it feels right now.
Feels a lot less intense than a few minutes ago.
Good. So much of Anna's narrative is in regards to how other people view her, how she views herself in her community. This is clearly a topic that causes a lot of activation in our brain. Why is our standing in our community so important to our brain? Why is there so much of our brain dedicated to kind of analyzing our relationships with others? Why is this stuff important?
I think it comes from our roots as tribal mammals, where our safety and threat level really depended on our status in the tribe, and in or out. And that's humans are not, biologically we're not built for solo survival. We really rely on shared child raising, shared food gathering, shared hunting, and such. And so this is really big deep in our circuits.
Why does it cause so much distress to our brain when we feel like we're not being accepted by others, or there's judgment, or even we don't have such a high opinion of ourselves?
Yeah, it's the same. The brain circuits for thinking about others and thinking about ourselves is really the same network. It's called the default mode network, and that that thinks about others and ourselves. And it's interesting that it's called the default mode network because it comes on by default when we're not doing anything else, which also goes to show, so what are our minds doing by default? It's probably thinking about other people and thinking about ourselves and thinking about what they think about us. It's kind of like the default activity that our minds will do.
So in this last clip I played, I was really trying to help Anna reattribute her view of emotions as positive and healing and an excuse to kind of increase self-compassion. And that really falls into some of the modalities you were talking about before, EAT and ISTDP. Now that she's feeling a little bit more comfortable with her emotions, you can see the tension in her neck is kind of releasing a little bit. She's feeling more comfortable with herself. I want to get back to some of the more specific pain work. And this would be kind of more in the PRT realm, which is helping her now reattribute these sensations in her body as something that's positive or healing or something that's not so scary. So let's take a listen as we conclude the clip with Anna. And what I want you to see now is, now that you're feeling this a little bit more relaxed, I want you to just see if you can actually feel it as a consoling squeeze. Not as something that's holding you back or hurting you, but actually almost feel like finally your nervous system and your body is actually trying to help regulate you. Feel it as like a nice gentle massage. That's saying you're exactly where you need to be. You don't have to go anywhere. And just feel yourself almost accepting that caring. You don't have to protect yourself anymore. And you can almost imagine your roommate just sitting with you as you find yourself healing. And how does that feel?
It feels great.
Good. So just enjoy that. Each moment that goes by, it's not just feeling it as a neutral sensation. Feel it as a soothing, healing sensation. It's the quickest way to get your brain to view these sensations through a lens of safety. And just imagine your life going forward now, where you feel yourself getting taken care of and you feel yourself as not something that needs to change, but it's just something that exists. And does it feel present? Are you able to feel more present in this moment?
Yeah.
Good. And so just take one or two more breaths and just see if you can just kind of enjoy this and know that you have the ability to access this. And it'll become like anything you set your mind to, it'll just become second nature eventually. Instead of accomplishment, this is how you can regulate yourself. And then you can enjoy the accomplishments and just feel that nice gentle squeeze in your neck. And just take one or two more breaths. And when you're ready, just slowly open your eyes, come back to the screen. And how does that feel?
It feels really nice. I had a small realization while we were doing the meditation. And it's the fact that no one out there really, really, really knows what they're doing. And all the people that were kind of punishing me for being me, they don't know what they're doing. And my parents didn't know what they were doing. And I put so much trust in all these people that don't know what the hell they're doing. And now I'm like, I probably know what I'm doing way more than they know what they're doing. Why not trust me?
How does that feel?
It's crazy. It's like being led into this huge secret, you know?
100%.
They have no idea. Nobody has any idea. We're all a little scared and trying to figure it out.
Just faking it, right?
Yeah, and some of us have really put so much more work into not being scared and figuring it out. Why trust the people that haven't?
And this is like a core belief I want you to hold on to. This is like that feeling of safety of I'm safer than them. I don't have to appease them.
My God, I feel like I need to stop taking other people so seriously.
If that's one thing that comes out of this, it's probably the most powerful thing you could think. Yeah.
Yeah. I take everyone else so seriously and not myself.
If you have the mindset of I'm okay, all these people that I'm taking so seriously, I don't have to take seriously. And you can get in that nice, great psychological space and then view these sensations as benign or even helpful. Your brain will learn very quickly that there's no danger there. It doesn't need to shut you down. It doesn't need to kind of hold your hands hostage so that you take care of yourself. So obviously when somebody comes to treatment and they want to have their pain decrease. That's their focus. But sometimes there can be some kind of wonderful realizations that happen when a brain feels safe. Things kind of click into place. I know you talked about the default mode network before, how we might be manipulating that. Is there any explanation for when you start feeling safer and when your pain decreases, the sensitivity goes down, you can kind of make some realizations that you might not have seen before?
Yeah, it makes total sense to me clinically. And I mean, and personally and clinically, I've seen that. Again, I mean, watching you work, John, it's like, this is incredible. And I just want to understand it scientifically. And we're not there yet as a field to try to like, where do these insights come from? What is the nature of self-insight? How does that arise? And under what conditions? And I at least from my training, the area of psychology and neuroscience that I've studied, I struggle to be able to explain that well, like what makes an insight happen now and not another time. But from just the lived experience perspective, like yes, totally, you get in these deeper states where you're being really present with yourself and really honest, and things click that you haven't seen before.
So there's so much we still don't know. And one of the reasons I so enjoy spending time with you and talking with you is that when you don't know something, you'll be the first person to say, we don't know yet. And we're going to still do research on it. But there is also a lot that you've figured out and that you've put so much time into. I know we just wrapped up a trial that you ran called the puppy trial. And I know you can't say too much about it because it's not published yet, but can you just give people a little preview of what's going to come out of that study or some of the things that you've learned?
Yeah. So the puppy trial was designed to address the major limitations of the Boulder back pain study, and also just to be, test whether the results in the Boulder back pain study were a fluke thing that happened once or something repeatable. And long story short, the results look great. We just got to be honest; they look really great, and they show that PRT is better than more effective at reducing pain relative to current leading treatments like cognitive behavioral therapy by a pretty wide margin. It's amazing to have you, John, as one of the clinicians on the puppy trial doing this kind of work. We just got to observe with Anna, with these participants as part of PRT in that trial. And I just think it's really exciting, and we're kind of on the cusp of being able to ask and answer a lot of deeper questions when it relates to chronic pain. I think we can, it's easier to explain how fear of pain and avoidance of pain can drive pain, and how these kind of, like the work we were just watching, how all that stuff helps relieve pain, I think is the next frontier of trying to explain that and reproduce it. It's not that I watch you work, it's like, gosh, it's like, what's going, like, it seems almost magical, but I know it's not, because I know there's a method to your madness, but it seems just so efficient and so powerful. And now Anna's having insights, and her whole affective state has shifted. Her pain levels have gone down, and all in the course of like 10 minutes. And so it's really remarkable.
Well, just to fill some people in, Yoni's research is now moving on past. He's done a lot of research on chronic lower back pain, but one of the things that make me really excited is that you're moving on to research past lower back pain, other chronic conditions, other issues. And I know there's a lot of people listening today who have more than pain. Is there any hope or insight you can give to people listening? Just some kind of final words on, if you're listening and you're struggling, is there any thoughts you can give to people on how to keep going, where to look for resources, anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, relating to this session or this clip that we just listened to, I was thinking of this idea that I find compelling, that emotions can get metabolized. So when like emotions, when they are fully experienced and fully expressed, they will naturally pass and die down like these waves that rise and fall and get metabolized by our system. And when we don't fully experience them or don't fully allow them and feel them and express them, then there's a residue that's left in the system, and that residue can build up over time. And where a person like Anna maybe is feeling these kind of low levels of stress, anger, sadness, fear of abandonment, etc. And those may be with her throughout the day at some low kind of back burner level. And what I think what we saw happen here was um, you kind of bringing those up and giving her a chance to fully metabolize some more of those experiences and letting them move through her system, so that they can pass through. And it's really a call for honesty for all of us to be really real with our experience and to be really honest with, like, yeah, I'm actually mm, feeling sadness, and I'm feeling, and it's hard to do because we've all been so um accultured to kind of putting a smile on, saying, answering good when someone asks you how you're doing, and so forth. And so it's something that I only started to learn in my 20s, of like, actually, like, how am I doing? And for me, a big part of it was learning to pay attention to sensations in my body related to emotions in the chest, the stomach, the throat, the face, really trying to feel things that were there, and then being like, oh, wow, like the body's letting me know what I'm really feeling. Even if my mind says, oh, I'm good, but there's this tightness in the chest, there's this heaviness in the throat. There's some other part of me that wants some attention, wants some care and compassion.
Well, Yoni, thank you so much for being with us today. I appreciate you being on this episode. We're going to have you back when the latest trial comes out, because I think we're just scratching the surface, not just on your research, but also one of the fun things about Yoni is that he's willing to go into the emotions and even the spirituality of some of this stuff. So he's not your common neuroscientist. He's got a lot more depth to him. So I so appreciate you being here, and thanks so much.
Thanks so much, John. It's been truly a pleasure, and I'd be delighted to come back anytime.
Thanks so much for listening to The Solution Behind the Symptoms. I want to give a huge thank you to Anna for sharing a piece of your journey. If you'd like resources on overcoming chronic symptoms, visit the website symptomatic.me. And if you'd like to be a patient on a future episode, message me on Instagram at johng.therapy, where I answer questions and share tools from my practice. Thanks again.